Let's start with some welcomes for those. We might not be able to get through everyone as they join, but let's start with those that have. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, yes. My name is Heather Waite. I am an alumni of BYU School of Nursing from a long time ago in 2004. I'm just finally going back to school and I'm doing my BSN to DNP at the University of Nevada, Reno. It's all online. And I was so excited to hear about this. I actually heard about it from Kimberly Gibson, who's with the alumni organization at BYU. And she said, oh, get on this. We have to find mentors. We have to find opportunities. And I'm so glad to be here and talk about AI as well, because we're doing that too right now.
Thank you. We welcome you. Enjoy having you with us. Kimberly, we're going to have you give our opening prayer, but before we do that, if you could introduce yourself and your role.
Hi, my name's Kimberly Gibson, and I work for the BYU College of Nursing as the Communication and Public Relations Manager. And I'm happy to be here, happy to learn from you, and excited to try to grow this group and get more of our alumni to know more about it.
Excellent. Thank you, Kimberly, for joining us. We'll get to the prayer in a minute. Joshua, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Josh Emerson. I'm a director of ambulatory practices. I'm one of the co-chairs for one of our networking groups, and I wanted to be on here to not only support Shannon in this wonderful endeavor that we're pushing through, but to make sure that I'm here to support and continue on the conversation and learn from our nurse leaders. So I'm really excited to hear what everyone has to say.
Excellent. Has Britt joined us?
I haven't seen him yet.
Okay, yeah. Kim, would you like to introduce yourself, and then Charmaine?
Hey, I'm Kim Abbott. I'm a psych nurse practitioner. I work in Utah at Primary Children's and Families First Pediatrics. And then I'm driving my girls home from gymnastics, but luckily I'm at a stoplight.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you join us. Charmaine, do you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Gretchen?
Hello, everyone. I'm Charmaine from the Philippines. I'm an incoming BYU MBA student, and I am a pharmacist in the Philippines, and I'm very interested in healthcare. So I joined this for networking and to learn more about AI. So thank you.
Thank you, Charmaine. Gretchen?
Hi, my name is Gretchen Fors, and I'm a family nurse practitioner, and I live in Boise, Idaho. Yeah.
Great, we're glad to have you. I think we missed Courtney. Courtney, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Courtney. I am currently in the nursing program at BYU, so I'm here to learn a little bit more about AI today and network and learn a little bit more about nursing and leadership in the field.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone that's on already? Okay, well, we have Britt has joined us now, and he's going to start with some introductions, and then we'll have Kimberly Gibson. She's introduced herself already, but we'll have her do our opening prayer. And then after that, Britt Barrett, who's the managing director of the BYU Healthcare Leadership Program, will give you some updates on what we're doing in the Healthcare Leadership Program.
Well, thank you. Thrilled to be with you. And it's quite a crowd. A couple familiar faces. I'm going to probably pick on a couple of you during tonight's presentation. Doug Crabtree has got more stories about healthcare than should be humanly allowed. But and I think all of us do. So we're thrilled we could connect this evening. And our intent, obviously, is to elevate our understanding of the complexity of the U.S. healthcare delivery system, and also insert some camaraderie and some engagement, some relationship building, both personally and professionally. This is a relational industry, right? I think we'd all agree. I don't think AI, Brenton, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think AI can do bedside care. I might be wrong. And I don't
not
think,
yet.
But not yet. But we do know that it's a tool. So we're just thrilled that Brent could be with us. I'll introduce him in a moment, and hopefully I have the ability to share with you what's going on at leadership at BYU and some insights before we kick into our discussion. So thrilled to be with you, and thank you, Shannon, for co-hosting this. It's great to be with you all.
All right. Kimberly, would you like to give us a beginning prayer?
Sure, thank you. Our dearest and most gracious Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the opportunity that we have to gather together, to learn from each other, to meet each other, and to know how we can help each other. We're grateful, Heavenly Father, for thy gospel. We're thankful for Brigham Young University. We're thankful for our leaders, and we're thankful, Heavenly Father, for our Savior. We're thankful for the wonderful students that we have to work with, and we ask that thy Spirit will be with us this day, that we will be inspired and be able to receive revelation, be able to understand things better so that we can use the tools necessary and the new tools that are coming to enhance our ability to do our jobs. We're grateful, Heavenly Father, for this opportunity, and we say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you. Well, Shannon, do you want me to kick in?
Sure.
Let's see if I'm allowed to.
I was just going to take this out.
Let's see.
Go right ahead. I think they're going to put the program or the your slides up on the screen.
Well, let me. I want to take the slides that I had put together. Application window. Let's see if that happens. All Zoom works. Share your screen. Okay.
Well, you're pulling that up really quick. I'm going to remind them, we really want you to join our Slack channel. And at the very beginning, there was a QR code up. If you haven't joined our Slack channel yet, please do that. We already have had some great engaging conversations on the nursing one, and people are asking unique questions and different people answer. I think it's a great way for us to connect. So I forgot to mention that at the beginning, but please consider doing that. And then if you have questions throughout this that you want to pose as Brenton is speaking, feel free to throw those in the chat and we'll try and pull those out when we get to the question and answer session. Sorry, Brett.
No, you're great.
Plug in for Slack.
Let's see. How's that looking? Is that clear as a bell? Da-da-da. Lisa, can you see that? Or Shannon, can you see my slides?
I can see it. You just might want to increase the size and fill up the screen. There you go.
There we go. Okay. Let me give you a little bit of an update. Our focus is to transform healthcare through Christ-like leadership and prepare them for an industry. Now, some will say, oh my gosh, that's kind of churchy. Yeah, we kind of are. But let me just share with you, the secular world refers to transformational leadership. That's the term they use. And it's, consider for a moment the behaviors of our Savior, how he led with kindness, with determination. He built a team. He held people responsible. He had some bad players, right? So we're teaching our students to lead with Christ-like leadership. The response has been overwhelming. Bill Taylor in 2016, after a number of activities, ACHE conferences, executive lecture series, Bill's an accountant here at BYU, and he was tasked with building the program, has done just a fantastic job. In 2022, we received approval from BYU to declare a minor in healthcare leadership from the business school. Take a look at the growth. I don't know if you can see that as well as I can. I don't know if is that, Shannon, can you see that growth? It's phenomenal. Now, we break this down into two groups, business students and non-business students. And that's because it's how it's in the business school. And our effort is to say, hey, clinical folks, let us share with you some business aspects, some understanding of the complexities, not the clinicals. So the healthcare leadership is not fitting its nose into the clinical side. It's basically saying, let's collaborate together. So we're introducing business people to some of the clinical aspects and clinical folks to the business aspects. So the clinical, the pre-nursing, nursing, pre-med, dietetics, exercise physiology, the list goes on. they have just caught on fire. Right now, we have over 700 students in our club. Every week we meet, and we have over 100 students on average at our meetings. Our closing social, the chief strategy officer for the new medical school, we had 225 students attend that. So it's a kind of a great place to be. Here's another, some of the students that are attending. And I just share that with you because we're teaching intro to healthcare. We're teaching value-based care. We're teaching finance. We're introducing a new class on law, regulatory, and bioethics. And now we're going to talk about that as it relates to AI tonight. But I'll pause for a moment because I kind of get a little excited. So I got to, Marie's going to prescribe a tranquilizer for me. I know that. Questions or thoughts or observations that you might have. I've gone through that kind of quickly because I want us to get to Brenton, but thoughts or observations?
I
Yeah,
have
Marie,
one.
please. Heather, go ahead.
Yes, yep. I'm grateful that you're doing that, and I'm wondering if it will be integrated in the future med school, because they need the value based. I hope we don't create a whole med school that they all do fee for service, like we're trying to get away from that. So I hope it's all integrated. I didn't know who to send an email to. I sent an email to BYU a month ago that said, please make them all read Clayton M. Christensen's book, and please make sure they don't do fee for service, and please make sure.
You're speaking my language. It's been fun watching the medical school. Honestly, none of us thought that would ever occur, right? And so when we got the call, the president of president of the university got the call 15 minutes before it was announced by the first presidency. Brad Allen, who's the CEO of Intermountain Healthcare, tells us, we got called months ago for information, but we had no idea this was coming. The Lord moves in mysterious ways. I honestly believe in divine direction, and prophets see around corners, right? So the medical school, we have a dean of the medical school, chief strategy officer, a couple of key positions. They announced that it'll be placed where Provo High School is. So if any of you attended Provo High,
My alma mater.
Run down and grab a brick because that baby is going. They plan to open it in September of 2027. The plan is to do phase construction. They need to get accreditation, which is going to be very difficult. But Heather, we've been pitching because as you build a curriculum, anatomy, physiology, chem, the whole 9 yards, we're advocating for also classes, which the accrediting agency requires, classes on bioethics, the business of healthcare, communications. We're even suggesting a dual degree, MD, MBA, MD.
MD, MBA.
Yeah, and so those are being discussed. Their primary focus is to get accredited. So that there's some basics that you have to check. But yes, Heather, you're with the rest of us as a voice of, hey, let's introduce some of these things. Bill Taylor is on several of the committees. I think they have like 17 committees. And so Bill Taylor is actively involved in that. Marie, you had a comment.
Well, I just wanted to comment and say how excited I am that we're continuing to see a growth in our nursing students joining this healthcare leadership group. They're coming back with really great ideas. And I love that they are going to the seminars and then coming back and having discussions in our nursing courses about what they're learning. And I think it's really beneficial.
Well,
so I'm excited about that.
More than that, a year ago, we had the Wasatch Cup, which is a case competition. The winning team were a bunch of nurses and pre-meds. I mean, they rocked it. And so they competed with all these MBAs, and they just were amazing. So you've got I know one of our nursing students on the call tonight. She is absolutely exceptional. So yeah, the best in the finest. We have an executive lecture class every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, and we have executives from across the United States come in and talk about pharma, biotech, revenue cycle. And the theme is, how do you transform healthcare through Christ-like leadership? Just for the fall semester, we have 130 students already enrolled. It's 2 months away. We're filling up so there is interest, and I'm thrilled that they're going back to their classrooms and just engaging the conversation. We don't have the answers. We're going to engage in the conversation. Okay, I apologize, but I got going. Gretchen, you had a comment.
And my daughter was a freshman this year at BYU, and as much as I would like her to go to nursing school, she wants to go to medical school. So she's extremely thrilled about the BYU medical school, and she wants to get her pre-med is, and I can't remember, I think it's biology, but then it was with a minor in healthcare leadership. And I think she's participated in some of the programs that you were talking about. And it's just really exciting to see. So I appreciate all the work you guys are doing there. Yeah.
Thrilled. Amazing men and women. I've taught, well, I was a hospital president for 25 years. Doug and I were co-conspirators in running hospitals. And then I jumped out and taught at SMU and UT Dallas, and I just joined the faculty 2.5 years ago. And it just has been just inspiring to see the quality and caliber. The sons and daughters of the Gretchens of the world and the Courtneys of the world, they're getting it. And so I think we are going to have them well prepared for future in healthcare. So any other comments, questions? Okay, let's pivot. Shannon, do you want me to introduce Brenton? Is our next?
Either way, I'm happy to, or you're welcome to.
Please go ahead.
Well, I am very excited to introduce Brenton Hill to you today. He is the head of operations and general counsel at the Coalition for Health AI. And it's a healthcare leading nonprofit thought partner organization that's dedicated to providing guidelines for the responsible use of AI in healthcare. He completed his undergraduate at Arizona State University, and then he got his JD and MHA at the University of Kentucky. So he comes very well educated to us. With this dual training as an attorney and healthcare administrator, he approaches his work from a risk-informed and operationally feasible perspective, which I think is important to our discussion tonight. In his prior role, he served as the regulatory strategy and compliance manager for the Mayo Clinic platform, where he was assisting in identifying its approach to the emerging AI regulation and risk mitigation strategies. He also served on Mayo's SAMD review board, which provides governance for AI models that are being implemented. And he also served as Mayo Clinic's very first legal trained administrative fellow. That's a unique combination. That's pretty exciting. Anyway, after his first year in this fellowship program doing traditional hospital operations, he pivoted and spent the next year focused on digital health regulation and AI implementation. And that's where he gained his passion. I hope I captured that right, Brenton. But he is passionate about connecting the healthcare sector and providing a collaborative community that can help us define how AI will help solve some of the healthcare sector's most pressing issues. So we're very lucky to have him join us tonight, and I'm going to turn the time over to him.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you, Britt, for the opportunity here. As you noticed, there wasn't a BYU in any of my credentials, so thank you for inviting, a friend to BYU to come. I think my closest BYU connection was I served my mission in Provo, Utah, and so I was able to scapegoat the going to BYU and went back to my home state of Arizona. So it's really great to be here. I love interacting with BYU alumni, students, et cetera, et cetera. So thanks so much for having me. I am going to share my screen here because I just sent a request to share my screen. Okay, there we go. I have a slide deck. I don't want to bore you to death, but I think I'm a visual learner, as I think most of us are, and so I like to present with PowerPoints. Can everyone see that? Is that looking okay? Is it sharing the right screen? Great.
It looks great.
So as I was figuring out, how to start this, I thought, why not start it with one of my beloved childhood cartoons in Toy Story? And so when we think about, to AI and beyond and the excitement, the hype, everything that we're doing, I think about Buzz Lightyear. And one of the more memorable lines from Toy Story was when Woody approaches Buzz. I think they're on Andy's bed, and he's like, "You're a toy, Buzz. You aren't the real Buzz Lightyear. You're an action figure." And so, it made me think, okay, is AI going to be some shiny object that's a toy that organizations use to do the next big shiny object thing, or will it save the day? Will it be like the Buzz Lightyear in the Lightyear movie that, you know, was a hero that did actual things that solved actual problems? And so as we go about today, as we think about this, I want that to be top of mind is, you know, what is AI going to become? And I think it really depends on all of us here to make that journey. So a little bit of a primer on artificial intelligence, on AI. As you heard, I'm not a data scientist. I don't come from a technology background. So I really try to boil down everything I do into really simple buckets. And so the way I define AI and the way that I'm kind of seeing industry define it is you take your traditional AI that has been around for decades. So things like machine learning and tools that can analyze patterns, repeat that, and do really good work, more advanced than humans, more accurate than humans, more quickly than humans. So that's traditional AI. And AI that falls into those buckets are, you know, disease prediction algorithms that will help you identify patients that are flagged for diabetes, or that will help you flag radiological scans, and, you know, tumors or defects or whatever the AI is trained to do. All the buzz really started back in 2022 when ChatGPT came around the block, and so that's what most people consider AI today. You know, they forget about what's been happening for decades and they go immediately to ChatGPT came online in 2022 and it immediately changed our lives as we know it. And so when you think about generative AI or large language models, as some people call them, you think about the same pattern recognition that AI has been training to do over the last, you know, several decades, but now it's applied to a level of human intelligence where it can predict the next best word. And so by taking large swaths of data and by taking historical amounts of data, internet, you know, whatever it's been fed, it can, as you put in an input, it can predict what that answer should be. And so you think about, you know, we all have probably used ChatGPT to answer a question. It does that through a series of predictions. Now, fast forward that into what the next hot bucket item is, agentic AI or AI agents. It's taking that generative AI technology where you can prompt engineer, where you can, you know, engineer a response, and it's making that generative AI function semi or fully autonomous. And so we're going to go over some real life use cases of how this is being used in healthcare. But when you think about AI, that's how I would start to conceptualize it, is you have really basic kind of prediction. You have things that can generate ideas, context, words, et cetera, and then there are going to be agents that start to perform functions on our behalf at some point. And so when you think about some of the frontier AI use cases that are out there, and I'm not, and just to preface this, I don't want to spend a ton of time just going deep into the technology because any vendor can do that for you. Any vendor can say the hype. What I want to do is I want to go over some use cases, but I want to really talk about the leadership aspects of AI, what I'm seeing on the ground floor, what I'm seeing at different organizations and different organizations that are succeeding. And especially, you know, as we talk about nursing, you know, some of the unique aspects that are going into nursing. But when you think about some of the frontier AI use cases, you think about AI coding automation. So an AI application that can automatically code an encounter, send a bill to a patient, do all that type of stuff, which is great, right? I mean, we know that there are hospitals struggling because they just can't code correctly, or their clinicians don't know how to code correctly, and they're losing revenue off that. Well, we also know there's these great laws that the Department of Justice likes to enforce in the False Claims Act and the Anti-Kickback Statute that can get you in a lot of trouble. And so we're finding that while this is a great use case, there is some reticence in adopting such technologies because of the risk. When you use a black box AI application that you don't have an audit trail on, that you don't know how it's making its decisions, much like ChatGPT is doing, it gets a little scary for the attorneys at the institutions, and I can appreciate that. The other one, of course, is revenue cycle. So you think about prior authorizations, and we think about solving the complexities that we think about in healthcare, value-based care, simplifying, streamlining, et cetera, et cetera. What if an AI application can make an instantaneous decision on a prior authorization without a physician having to scan a document into the insurer? Well, that is going to significantly streamline healthcare. But what about the reverse? What about what happens when the insurer combats your prior auth revenue cycle AI functionality with their own that is there to make sure they pay the least amount of money as possible? Well, now there's a conflict of interest. So again, really interesting. But you probably heard Dr. Oz got a commitment from, I think, the top between 6 and 10 leading insurers over the last couple of weeks that they were going to have humans in the loop in denials. And so when we think about best practices, when we think about responsible use of AI, insurers to combat this negative perception in using AI and prior authorizations, they are going to have only humans doing denials. And so an AI can flag a denial, but it's only going to be a human that's going to sign off on it, which I think is actually pretty groundbreaking in terms of how AI is going to be used in healthcare today. Now, when you think about more of the clinical things, where we get into more of the pertinent use cases for nurses, we think about disease detection. And right here is an algorithm that was developed by MIT that detects tuberculosis. And so it'll take, a chest x-ray of the lungs. It'll identify it, it's been trained to identify what tuberculosis looks like in the lungs historically. And this algorithm is used in low-income countries all over the world today to help those doctors who don't necessarily have that specialized training to be able to identify and treat earlier tuberculosis so that it does not become the damaging disease that it has known to be. And so again, taking an untrained, maybe an unskilled, physician that doesn't have a lot of specialized training, allowing them to diagnose something that will save someone's life very early, a great benefit of AI. And by the way, it's going to be probably 2 times more accurate than your human because of how the machine can do this, because of how they're trained. One of my favorite use cases, and one of the use cases that we're focusing on at Chai, is this whole concept of AI-generated in-basket responses, and Epic being one of the most notorious for rolling out this solution. Is we all know that clinicians today are bombarded through their patient portals with message requests from patients, and no one has time to answer that. No one has time to sit there and answer hundreds of requests. And so what Epic has done is they've designed an AI application using generative AI, likely through ChatGPT or a large language model equivalent, to start drafting responses to those notes so that when you go to review your in-basket responses, you can sign off on that if it's an appropriate response, or you can edit that and have something that you can that can streamline the way you respond to those responses. So very beneficial to not only clinicians or not only physicians, but nurses as well that are tasked with responding to these. And I think, as we talk to more and more healthcare institutions, it's often the nurses and the nursing assistants who are being tasked with responding to these. It's not the actual physicians. And so another great tool that's being rolled out that will help you, reduce burden, reduce burnout, and help you focus on what you want to focus on most, which is delivering high quality care to your patients. And the last two I wanted to highlight, we've all probably heard of ambient scribes. This is the hotbed. This is the hot ticket item. Everyone and their mother wants an ambient scribe because of the implications. Every doctor wants to use it. Well, I should say not every, but most doctors want to use it because they no longer have to sit there and look at their computer the entirety of the encounter. But they can interact, engage with the patient. They can bring personalization and human to human touch again to their patient interactions. And ultimately, when I talk to physicians, when I talk to administrators, when I talk to leaders all around healthcare, that's what the true promise of AI is. It's bringing back those meaningful interactions that we've lost over time through use of electronic health record, through other mandatory reporting means. It's all about bringing that personal touch back. And so if we can do it through a simple software program like an ambient scribe that can record that encounter and do that, again, large promise. What's interesting is there's been a large scale study done on ambient scribes. We're not quite seeing necessarily a return on investment in terms of monetary investment. So if you look at how much these cost and how much value they're getting back, there are some that say there's an estimate of maybe 13,000 per physician per year. There's some that say there's net zero or even a sunk cost. But what I think we can say is that most physicians feel less burdened, have less pajama time. And so most organizations are opting to deploy these type of technologies as a competitive edge, as a recruiting strategy. And so as we think about how AI is adopting the healthcare landscape, it's not only influencing personal behavior from the clinicians, it's also influencing organizational behavior as they look to recruit and retain employees, because that's really hard in today's environment. And then the last example I want to highlight is a conversational AI agent, and it's a company called Hyro. And basically, what they can do is they can replace, call center automations. They can help patients automatically schedule visits. And this is where the line starts to cross of, okay, is AI going to start replacing humans? And so when you talk to people with Hyro and you talk to their customers, Intermountain being one of them, that I've talked with, what's interesting is they actually don't see this type of technology as necessarily replacing humans. They don't see it as, okay, our budget says, we got to save, 10% this year. We're going to automatically cut 1,000 people to save that 10% and replace it with an AI application. Instead, what leaders and what marketing, organizations are saying, like Hyro, is there is so much churn and burn in these type of positions, in call center positions. Why don't we, instead of going out and trying to recruit and going back to the recruiting cycle over and over again, why don't we backfill those positions with AI agents that can supplement our long-term employees that we know are going to stay, but that can provide them with another layer of help that are going to make them stay, so that we don't have more and more people leaving. And so I think it's really interesting how the dynamics are shifting. A lot of fear a couple years ago was AI is going to replace all of us. And now people are finding, okay, this technology really isn't good enough to replace all of us, but what it can do is it can fill the gaps of where, people might be falling off for retention, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's really interesting. And then when you look to what I think the future holds, and this is kind of my vision, this isn't necessarily out there, people aren't creating this, but when I think about where the industry is going, when I think about where AI is heading and the true power, I think about individualized AI. So I think about an AI solution that'll take my data, my preferences, my unique story, my background, my knowledge, my expertise, how I write, how I sound, et cetera, et cetera. We'll use that to train a large language model that's hopefully keeping my data safe and secure, not leaking it out to the public or anything. And in combination with an AI agent, taking some of the burden that I have as a startup executive and performing some of those actions, either semi-autonomous or fully autonomous, independent of me. And so I really do think this is the future. And I don't think it's the far distant future. I think this is a near future. My guess is a couple of years there will be products. Who knows how adopted they will be? Who knows how good they will be? But my sense is that we are going to be able to train AI based on our data, based on our preferences, based on our humanity, and allow it to do certain things. And so you see a select number of vendors up there. There's a select number of vendors that can do this. And so as we're thinking about the future, I think some of the worries that people are having is, okay, there's 6 companies that can do this relatively well. What does that mean for the rest of the industry? What does that mean for startups? What does that mean for Silicon Slopes? We think about Utah Valley and Utah and its robust startup atmosphere. What does this mean for all of us? Do we have vendor lock-in? Do we have to accept terms that we don't want to because of vendors? We all know that when we go to purchase something online, we don't read through the terms of service. We go and accept it because if you don't accept the terms of service, you can't buy the product. And so when we think about that applied to now our own data, our own preferences, our livelihoods, what is that going to mean? Where does my human input and action come in? So I think it's an interesting ethical dilemma that I don't have the answer to, but I think it's something that we should start to think about as we, consider this new AI world that we're going to be living. And so, as we think about, are we ready for AI? There's really 2 stories that come to mind. So back in April of 2024, you all probably heard about the nurse walkouts that were happening in Northern California in the Bay Area. In a matter of weeks, Kaiser Permanente had an AI solution that they had rolled out that nurses were interacting with. And they had 200 nurses walk out and protest because of that. And A year later, a year and a month later in May, Mercy, a hospital system here locally in the Midwest, they rolled out a similar AI solution and it had 100% adoption in 2 weeks. And so the question that I think people ask is, okay, what is the difference between an organization that can get nurses to adopt this 100% in a matter of weeks, and an organization that has walkouts the next day in a magnitude of 200 with people complaining and posting on social media, big news storm. This Mercy article, was never made a big deal about. But, when you talk to nursing leaders at Mercy, when you talk to their chief AI officer, when you talk to their CEO, they are creating an environment where nurses feel seen, supported, and empowered. And so it all boils down to people. It's never about the technology. And so that's how I want to take the rest of my talk today. There's going to be so many different applications. You're going to be wowed. You are going to, read things, see things. But at the end of the day, no people, no technology. And so when you think about the current challenges of where we stand today, we have great technology. We don't have great, oftentimes great solutions. And you think about scalability. So there's a serious cost problem with AI, because right now individual point solutions can range from several $100,000 for organizations to millions of dollars. And if you think about, the true promise of AI, no organization can purchase these solutions one by one and expect to have positive gains, expect to have positive returns on investment such that it's sustainable. And so we have to think about the sustainability and the scalability of these solutions, whether the platform approach is the right answer, where it's a suite of products that you get. Think about your EHRs that you get. Well, then you have vendor lock-in. Then you have a limited set of solutions. Well, then you have point solutions. So there's a lot of decisions that business and clinical leaders need to make, because, depending on your unique financial situation, you could lock yourself into some interesting situations. You think about trust, both in the technology and from the end users. We just talked about that with nurses. Am I replacing FTEs with software? You think about sufficient data. Not enough is said about the infrastructure that needs to be laid and the foundation that needs to be laid in order for AI to succeed. And, while we're on the subject of nursing, you think about every time you chart in the patient's note, you think about every time you write something, all of that data that you're writing is being used to train AI models. And that data that you have in that chart, if it's incomplete, if it's inaccurate, if it's misrepresentative, that is going to affect the performance of an AI algorithm. And so I don't think there's enough being said about how we prepare our clinicians to chart correctly, to make sure that they're, writing the data in the appropriate formats, in interoperability, such that this can all succeed. And so I think there's a serious lack of education that's happening around that. You think about the legal and policy landscape. It's a mess right now. You have states acting on one arm. You have the federal government that can't decide what to do. They just tried a 10-year moratorium in the big beautiful bill that didn't end up working out. It was voted down 99-1 because everyone thought that was a bad idea. There's a lot of uncertainty there. And so people, historically, healthcare is a business where you want to be told what to do. You want to be told the boundaries. You want to be told the yeses and the nos. You want to be told the blacks and whites. Well, in AI, there's no black and white today. There's uncertain legal liability. There's uncertain repercussions. There's uncertain, malpractice implications. It's a risk to deploy AI today, and so that's a very much current challenge. As I mentioned, vendor locked-in. The other big thing is governance, and then of course leadership. And so what I want to say is, one of the things that I'm really proud of in our organization is that we're going to be partnering with the Joint Commission, the organization that accredits hospitals and institutions to get paid by Medicaid and Medicare, to help them adopt responsible AI principles through voluntary certification and through education. And so I'm really excited about that. We're also partnering with Florida State University College of Nursing to develop AI-specific education for nurses. So talking about how do you chart and document properly? How do you use AI properly? How do you make sure that you're not, disclosing PHI in your interactions with AI? All that good stuff that I think we need to know. So really excited, current challenges, but obviously solvable challenges that we can do through, good people management. And so how do we transform healthcare with AI? Well, as I said before, the technology will only be as good as the organizations using it. And so a shameless plug to Britt's book, which I think, is very influential in the space, is really at the end of the day, if employees are not happy, if your organizational culture is not right, if your executive team is not in sync with those people doing the work on the ground floor, how do you expect a transformational technology like AI to actually proliferate, to actually make the impact that you want? It's not. And so at the end of the day, we as leaders are trained in traditional traditional leadership tactics, how to identify problems, how to help people, how to go to the bedside and help people out. That is how you succeed in AI. It's all about the people. And so, we all know the scripture, by small and simple things, great things come to pass. And I live in Oklahoma City. We just won the NBA championship, so I had to flaunt a little bit on my Thunder because I was so excited about them. But I think about, a simple equation of how do we get good AI adoption? Well, it's all about the good data, as I mentioned before. It's all about that healthy culture, and it's about foundational investments that set you up for success. And so I think about what the Thunder did over the last few years, around data. I think about how they establish a culture. The Thunder players after the game, oftentimes they all interview as a team. It's not just one guy interviewing with the broadcaster, and they always go to the local station before they go to ESPN or TNT. And so I think about culture, and I think about people that have a belief in one another, a belief in Oklahoma City. I think about the Thunder. And then you think about the executive of the year, Sam Presti, who took a team that was 20-60 and transformed that into a team that was number one in the NBA, won 68 games, and was the youngest team in the NBA, and they somehow won a championship. It's all about culture. I would say they weren't the most talented. Of course, they had the MVP. For Kentucky grad Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, got to exhibit some pride in him. But at the end of the day, it wasn't about Shea. Shea oftentimes got stopped by the Pacers. It was about that team. It was about individuals stepping up and making that happen. The same thing that we think about when we think about team basketball or when we think about organizations, change management. We should apply that same exact thing to how we look about AI. And so as I end my presentation here, I like to think about AI in terms of like a roadmap, and I think every leader can do 6 things really effectively when it comes to AI. So you got to start with the basics. How do you identify problems? And when I was at Mayo, when I was in my graduate studies, it was all about you go to the floor and you see rounding, all those things that good administrators do each and every day. Britt, that I know that you did when you were an executive, because my dad did the same thing when he would take me to the hospital. He would round with me. It's that simple. You go and see, you talk to the people who are solving the most complex problems. You talk to your key stakeholders and you see how can you help. You approach it. How can you help? You think about cultural assessment and mission alignment. Everything you do, even if it is technology, has to be aligned to your mission and culture. And if your culture isn't there, if it's not mission aligned, well, maybe that should be how you make your decision. How good is my data? Of course, going back to data, good AI, bad data, bad AI. Data is the new oil. So organizations are hopefully becoming smart on what is the value of my data? How can I leverage that? How can I generate revenue from that? And how do I put patients at the heart of this and create solutions that not only benefit my staff, but my patients? What foundational investments do I need? How do I ensure proper and responsible use? I created a quote, my first quote ever, maybe my last: govern your AI or it will govern you. It's very true. And then last, when and what do I buy? That should be the last question you ask. Oftentimes, I think this goes in reverse, where we think, okay, what do I got to buy? What do I got to do? You go and buy something, and then you figure out, oh, I don't have a governance process in place. I don't have any investment. My data sucks. This isn't aligned with my culture and mission, and I never identified a problem. And so those that do that often find their technology doesn't work, or no one adopts it, or it doesn't make the impact that they thought it would make. And in the end, it wasn't the technology, it was the leaders, it was the organization, and it was the change management. So I'll leave you with a quote that came to mind yesterday. It was interesting. This quote, we talk about spirituality and the importance of Christ-like leadership. This quote, as I was thinking about AI, popped in my mind from the Doctrine and Covenants. And so, the scripture goes, "Verily I say, men should be anxiously engaged in a good cause and do many things of their own free will, and bring to pass much righteousness. For the power is in them, wherein they are agents unto themselves, agents unto themselves. And inasmuch as men do good, they shall in no wise lose their reward." And so I just think it's super important as we think about AI, as we think about, its potential to transform and take over healthcare. In the end, it's us. It's us as individuals. It's us doing this, and it's all about people. So thank you so much for having me, and really appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. Really, I'm sure this has brought up a lot of questions. I thought maybe we'd start by opening the floor to some questions from people who were able to listen in. You can raise your hand or come off. There you go, Marie.
Brenton, I'm really interested. I'm faculty at BYU in the College of Nursing. What we should be teaching our nursing students about documentation, as you started talking about AI and how AI is going to be searching our records and looking at medical records. What should we be focusing on in our courses where we're teaching students how to document?
Yeah, I mean, I think it boils down to how the overall organization wants to do it. I think the worst thing that can happen is each nurse documents so differently that in the end, the notes are so unstructured and so difficult to manage, that the data that you're flowing into that AI algorithm is going to be hard to read or hard to interpret. So I would say the best thing is, making sure that people know the importance of note taking, know why it's important, and have pride in how they take their notes and try to be as complete and as accurate as possible. I don't know that there's a special equation for what should be included in it necessarily. That's not my expertise, but what I would say is just an emphasis on it, to say this is going to impact how future care is delivered, because AI is going to train on historical data, on real-time data. And so if the way that you document is going to be imperative to how AI is able to help you in your job. So it's you help the AI ends up helping you when you think about documentation. So I mean, there's going to be a lot more scientific way to do that, but I would say from like my simple perspective, that's why I would start to teach it, and then I'm sure there's going to be more standardized way to do it. But yeah.
Any other questions? Erin?
How to get my hand in the screen. Thank you. Very interesting, and I love the presentation. I also teach, but I also work a lot in public health and school nursing. That's my background, and I'm just thinking, kind of bringing what you were saying before, Britt, and then Brenton from your presentation. If you have suggestions on how can we help the nurses be the leaders as things move forward, because I feel like with technology and AI, everything is moving at like incredibly fast speeds. And it's exciting because I do think some of the predictive analytics can be really exciting in helping identify those disparities if done in an appropriate way. And how can nurses be leaders, and how can we teach that future group of nurses to be the leaders, to do it in a way that is appropriate and that we really can help identify those vulnerable populations in a new way to really help them? Just curious if you had ideas.
Can I jump in here? Because Erin raises a very important point, and I think those that have run hospitals will agree with me. When electronic health records came out, the selling point was you were going to reduce costs. Your man hours per staff is going to decline. And it was really a money grab. Let's be honest. It was like, okay, it's 2-to-1. Now it's going to be 3-to-1. Now it's going to be 4-to-1, because electronics is going to solve everything. Erin, I'm not hearing that from hospital administrators anymore. What I'm hearing is what Brenton is saying, That is, it is a tool, but if you don't have all the other components in place, it will be a colossal failure. So hopefully our industry has embraced that. So I'm not hearing FTE control as part of the sell, nor by the purchasers or the sellers. What I'm hearing is let's integrate it so it flows more effectively and efficiently and better quality. Brent, is that a valid? And I throw that out to Doug as well on your take. But is that a valid observation on our part?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I mean, no one in their right mind is selling these as human replacements because that's everyone's fear, right? I mean, it's to supplement, it's to augment, it's to enhance decision making, et cetera, et cetera. Now, whether that happens down the line, who knows? I mean, I think there's a lot of people who think about secretaries back in the 50s and 60s when the typewriter was invented, or when computers were invented. Most people didn't need a secretary anymore because they could type themselves. And I think someone quoted like there was like 5 million secretarial positions that were eliminated over the course of the computer era, and everyone was up in arms about it. And now it's just standard practice. Everyone uses a computer. So my sense is there's going to be a little upheaval as we think about it in the future. Jobs may be lost, but the best organizations, they find talented people and they reallocate them to do things that are even more important than what they were doing before, is what I'm seeing from a lot of organizations today.
Doug?
I agree with what you have both said. I went to a presentation in October of last year with a physician leader who talks about technology and AI. And the most powerful quote that he gave that I walked away with that conference from, walked away from that conference with the quote that AI is not going to replace humans, but humans who know how to use AI will replace humans who do not know how to use AI. And so to me, in all of our endeavors, fields of study, nursing, pharmacy, administration, leaders, whoever we are, I think this is just an opportunity for us to embrace technology. Elder Bednar has given some wonderful talks about AI and technology. Recently at a BYUI devotional, he talked about how he uses AI to review his talks before he gives them. I found it really intriguing and interesting that the General Handbook now has an AI search assist. And the church has an official policy about AI. And I think it's just there, it's here. And we just have to learn how to use it wisely and effectively and embrace it because it's not going away.
I think about when the electronic medical record came in, and I had been a nurse for, I hate to even admit how long by then. And I would say that I had about 10 very close nursing colleagues. And of the 10 of us, I'm the only one that stayed working because the electronic medical record scared them so bad to have to learn. I kept telling them, you can learn this. Even my mother, who retired from Utah Valley Hospital at 81, learned how to enter in the electronic medical record. But it's those that won't embrace and learn and understand that are going to struggle. Right. I think that's what you're kind of saying, Doug.
Yeah, there are some great statistics out there. I'm sorry I'm not prepared to share them with you tonight, but rate of adoption of Facebook and Instagram, and I don't remember all of them, but they were 2 years and 9 months and whatever to reach 1 million users. For ChatGPT to reach 1 million users, it was 2 months. So I mean, we just have to learn how to use it wisely, embrace it, anticipate it, teach it. I applaud those of you who are mentioned that you're teaching it and anxious to learn how to dictate and write notes better so that you can produce better AI results. I think that's all great.
Can I go back to Aaron's question? Because Aaron, I think we answered part of it. We didn't answer the full question. And what I would say is nurses have to be at the table. It can't be a dyad model anymore. We have to make sure that our organizations are implementing triad models because nurses are such a key stakeholder group. And what I would say is the best organizations and the most strategic leaders when it comes to AI are actually using a decentralized approach. And so you think about like overall organizational structure, they're allowing the nurses make the decisions on what AI applications to institute and to make, with the expectations that they also govern them, that they also are accountable for the decisions that those are making. And so I think, with great power comes great responsibility, right? And so I think it's about empowering nurses and enabling them to make decisions, learn from mistakes, et cetera, that's really going to get us to an environment where nurses feel like this technology is for my betterment. I'm controlling it. I'm in the driver's seat type of thing. So
one of the things that goes along with that, Brenton, that there is basically 5 questions that have recently aired. You know how we had the 5 rights of medication administration? And nursing leaders have done some research and come up with the 5 questions nurse leaders should ask about AI. And it leads back to what you're talking about, Brenton, in terms of, being at the table, determining the right objective, making sure that, you've got the right approach, the right people are giving the input, do I have the right data? A lot of the things you're talking about, but I love that the nursing leaders have tried to come up with a framework that nursing leaders need to use to guide their use and their involvement in AI implementation in their organizations. I see Courtney has her hand raised.
Yes, I just had a question about what skills should I, as a nursing student, or resources should I utilize and develop to stay relevant in an AI enhanced healthcare environment? What should I be doing now?
I'll take an initial stab at that, but I'm sure the nurses have a lot better ideas than I do. But what I would say is, the best thing you can do is start using the technology. Learn how to use it, learn how to use it effectively, learn how to prompt engineer or input things into a large language model like ChatGPT, and learn how to get the answer that you want to get, learn how to check the validity of those answers. Because at the end of the day, it can spit out an answer, but unless you know whether that answer is true or not, that's going to be the key decision maker that you have to make. So I would say the single best thing that you can do in AI right now, apart from
around eating.
is just using it. So
This has been a great evening. Shannon, before you close down, can I just make a couple comments?
Absolutely.
Thrilled that you could be with us, Brendan. Thank you so much. You have provided clarity on a very complex topic. A couple of takeaways along the way. This is part of the BYU alumni network, part of the healthcare leadership. And each of you jumped on here because you're curious. I hope it was valuable. Thumbs up, plus. Can I invite you to, wherever you learned of this, to go back and respond? Yemi gave us a big thumbs up all the way to the top. Can I invite you to go back to the place where you learned about this and comment on it? Give a thumbs up, give a small brief exclamation, because our intent is to bring us together to have these kind of conversations. I want to thank Shannon, who's co-chairing this and leading the charge, saying we got to have this. Now, Wednesday night and Thursday night we'll have ambulatory and hospital. You're all invited to attend that as well. Those are much larger groups, and this round we have not invited as many students. We didn't make a push, but in the following one we'll push real hard for students to join as well. But we'd be thrilled if you'd share this on social media, what you've learned tonight and the value therein, and gives us some thumbs up. So thank you, Sharon. That was all I have.
Yeah. No, thank you. And continue the conversation in Slack. I found once we started the Slack channel, people were asking some interesting questions, and sometimes 1 or 2 people would answer, but I think we can get some good dialogue going on after the meeting also in the Slack channel and other topics. And I would hope you would, share this further with nursing leaders. I think Britt and I have had this conversation, and Lisa and others, about, is it valuable enough to have a separate nursing leadership, healthcare leadership networking group? And I feel strongly that it is. But I understand that we also have people that are functioning in the ambulatory setting and they're functioning in the acute setting. Do you find it valuable to have a separate avenue where we're discussing nursing healthcare leadership? I would love some thoughts on that.
Great question.
I would say yes. For the accrediting body, the AACN, that puts out the essential domains for nursing and for our competencies. Informatics is one of them. We are supposed to learn this, and we are supposed to show that we're competent in them. I think it's necessary. I also do love the idea of interprofessional collaboration though as well. So just having us be invited to those other ones is great as well.
And Britt, maybe you want to just share with the group really quick some of the other activities that you have planned this year for healthcare networking, like the conference in October. And I just thought maybe you could quickly share with them some of they'll hear about them, but some of the other opportunities that you're offering this year.
Thank you. We'll close up. We'll push out more information. October 3rd, we're having a healthcare leadership conference on the campus of BYU. It's capped enrollment of 400, and we always sell out. So I would encourage you to look at that. Lisa, her and her team have done a marvelous job putting this together. So I don't know if we do applause or whatever. So, but Lisa, thank you to your team for putting this together. She'll shoot to you information about that conference. The keynote speaker will be Mark Ott, who's the new dean of the medical school, and also Shane Reese, the president of BYU. They'll be speaking at keynotes. We have 8 breakouts in that conference, and to that end, we also have the Wasatch Cup was a case study competition, and that's U of U, UVU, Utah State, all the Wasatch Front, Idaho State sent a team. We will also be having that'll be the weekend, the Friday before General Conference. The case study competition will be the Thursday before General Conference. In the fall, we have a Big 12 case competition, and we also in the spring have a healthcare leadership summit. This last time we held it at Sundance. We had 38 different clubs in healthcare come to Sundance for presentations from the deans of the business school and the life sciences school. So we've got a lot of great things going on the campus. I think I hit them all, Shannon. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you did. And again, I would like to give a thank you to Brenton for coming and being our guest speaker today and allowing us to have this opportunity to explore this subject. We really appreciate you giving your time to us. And again, on Wednesday and Thursday. So thank you. Thank you everyone for joining, and please feel free to carry the message along and share it to others.
Thanks so much. Have a great evening.
Lisa, I thought I'd just check in with everyone here for a second, see how we thought that went.
No, it's not. Yeah, turn those on. Okay, just give me a second to turn my volume on. Okay, there. What did you say, Shannon?
I'd just be interested to hear what your thoughts were about how that went tonight.
I was pleased. We got up to 23 people. So our numbers grew, and I really enjoyed the comments. We took notes on that discussion, so I can send those to you. I thought also that it seemed like people were responding well to the speaker and his topic.
I was felt like it was you always worry that you'll ask for questions and there won't be any. So I was really glad that people were prepared with questions and we weren't needing to kind of facilitate that. He did a great job, and I talked to him beforehand, and he said he was quite excited to do this one because he's seen so much around this topic and nurses' fear around it replacing them. And so I feel like that was good that came up tonight in the conversation. And a lot of these that attended tonight were leaders, nursing leaders, which also I think was really nice to have that good representation. I mean, Marie was there, and we had people clear from the Philippines. We had, leaders that are nurse practitioner leaders. And so anyway, I felt like we had a good cross-section of nursing leadership attend tonight.
I've seen several people also signing up for the Slack channel while
Good.
the meeting was progressing. So,
So now I
looks
gotta
like
make sure I get on
Heather's
there.
in there right now writing to us. So,
Oh, good. Yeah, I'll just have to I've been trying really hard to get in there every day and just see if there's anyone and respond and ask if anyone else can answer the question if I can't. And so.
here's some of those notes in there about the Q&A. Took notes on that.
Okay.
It's not exact quotes, but still gives a good idea of what was discussed. And then I also would like to get that article from
So I put the link.
Brenton.
Oh, the article from Brenton or the article
From
that I
Mercy,
posted?
like the one he was talking about from Mercy in California.
Oh, yeah. So if we can
But
get
then
that,
you
that
put
would
the
be
one with
great.
the 5 points that you were talking about, right?
And that link's in there if we want to share that. That would be great too.
Yes.
Hey,
Amazing.
well, I have to run to Salt Lake now, but I just wanted to have that quick conversation. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to represent the College of Nursing a little bit on this healthcare leadership.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you're so good at that, Shannon. Thanks.
For the rest of the webinars, are they doing AI as well, or are they doing something else?
Same
We are
topic.
doing AI, yeah.
I think he is taking a little bit different approach. Like you noticed, he brought in specific nursing things tonight because he said that he's going to try and focus in maybe on a few different questions and examples. So we'll see. I'm going to try and join so I can see how well it goes on Wednesday and Thursday as well.
Okay. Thank you,
Hey.
Shannon.
Thank you to both of you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
See you later. Bye. Lisa, let's go to lunch.
Oh, we should. I'm not on campus, but I can come down for that. I would love it.
Do you work from home?
I do right now because our team, the only on-campus office that we have is Britt's and Bill's. So, so we operate remotely. Emily and I do. She's my administrator. And so that's for now, unless we become a center, and then we would be able to expand. And that's always in the works as a potential that we ask for every year.
Yes, I know the feeling. Okay, well, I'm looking to hire someone like part-time to help me do I'm thinking that I want it to be the alumni communication stuff and also events and things like that. So
yeah, well, if you want to, like this week's pretty packed for me, but next week I have time unless you're moving on faster than that.
No, I am not at all. So
and have lunch with you.
great. That'd be great. Or we can meet somewhere. Where do you live?
I live in Harriman, so
that's so
it's a little ways
far.
away. But I come to campus for things that are necessary. So I'm here tonight with my team.
Oh,
Created a
good.
little command center to run things behind the scenes. So
Awesome. Okay, well, I'll reach out. Next week would be great, and we can meet. That's not a problem for me. So.
Also another relevant person, if I could get her, is Amber Hathaway. She works in the management department here at the MSB. She's a friend of mine that I've known for a long time, but she also helped create this position.
That would be excellent.
And so she kind of drew up what we're requesting. My job description has changed a little bit since that was drawn up, but yeah, if I could get her to come too, I think she's here on Mondays and Tuesdays. And those are when I do my work as well. So I could reach out to her.
Okay. That would be excellent. If you want to just set it up with the 3 of us, that would be great. I'll meet you anywhere. You know,
sounds good.
If you come down, great. If I have to go up to Harriman or whatever, just let me know. It would help me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I love that. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.